Another thing I want to do today is I want to explain exactly what sort of issues we have out there in the press regarding the weirdest story I've ever seen. Also, the main focus here is to illustrate that while they put so much emphasis on the registry and on getting the so-called sex offenders, but very, very little on where the larger problems are and certainly where law enforcement needs to be reined in. So let's look at some of these cases here. Right now, I'm going to share my screen. This was provided me in a couple of days ago by Mark out west, and he's talking about the story from Utah. And here, Amber Alert allegedly wrote love letters to victim gun at family. And what's really astonishing is they gave the gun back to him. After, I don't know about you, but if I got the gun away from somebody who was shooting at me, he would not get it back, at least willingly. So this is an extraordinary case out of Ogden, Utah, where we have um, there was a girl who was kidnapped 13 years old by a 33-year-old man who brought her to Fort Collins, Colorado before he was stopped. I think they made it all the way to Wyoming, come to think of it. The article later on says he was charged with child kidnapping. So, according to this man named Christopher Thomas Wiggins was known to the victim and to her family. In fact, he was living with them or living near them. And apparently, I don't want to do all of it here. I've got quite a lot of material I want to cover, but um, apparently, Wiggins, who has a young daughter himself, left her alone in a trailer when he went to kidnap the 13-year-old. He then drove her across several state lines, and as you will learn in the process, they had been carrying on a sexual relationship. The family told officers that several days prior to the kidnapping, they discovered on their family member, the 13-year-old girl's phone, a photo of Wiggins's penis. Now, this is the man who kidnapped the 33-year-old who kidnapped the 13-year-old and left his own daughter of age not described in this article in a trailer, his trailer, while he took off with this 13-year-old across multiple state lines. So as you're following it, that's how it's going. According to family, they discovered the image. They confronted Wiggins. He admitted taking it and sending it to the victim, said it was his. And the victim's mother parked a little bit away from the victim to talk to the victim about her relationship with Wiggins. Apparently, she drove her child away. And during the talk, Wiggins went after the two, found them, and shot at the mother. It says shot at them, but shot at the mother. Police saw the bullet hole in the back of the family's vehicle. Incredibly, when they confronted Wiggins following the shooting, he apologized and they gave him the gun back. I'm sorry, excuse me. He gave them the gun he had shot, but then the family gave the gun back to him. I don't know why, right? The day before the disappearance, though, the victim confided to her parents that she and Wiggins had been in a sexual relationship. 33-year-old man, 13-year-old girl. Okay? The family then told her, you're not allowed to have anything to do with him again. Okay? However, they discovered in this trailer when they searched for the couple condoms, bullets, other evidence. Apparently, they were having this relationship for some time. And Mr. Wiggins left a note in the trailer for his 13-year-old girlfriend. He said, "You are my everything. I can't live without you. I'll sacrifice everything to be with you two forever. Even if it costs me my life, you're worth it to me." All right. So some truly disturbing things. Now, to make it worse, the family knew that Mr. Wiggins was a registered sex offender already. His previous victim was a 14-year-old girl. Despite this, they were still allowing him apparently access to the family. So some clear judgment issues here. Okay. They made an Amber Alert, the police did, regarding on the vehicle and the victim, and they tracked him down to Fort the vehicle to Fort Collins, Colorado, but the victim's phone had pinged at 1:30 p.m. in Rock Springs, Wyoming. So apparently they went there too. They found the vehicle unoccupied and the pair not far away. But this is a bizarro story that just demonstrates breakdown at every level. Okay, and how being placed on the sex offender registry doesn't necessarily ensure that somebody is going to do something or not going to do something. And there are people who are not on the registry. The vast majority who are not on the registry are convicted of crimes, and we don't know to the extent that they were guilty of the crimes of what we would consider colloquially, if we just understand the facts of the case and not get them sanitized for us by the police, we don't necessarily know what is going on in there. The second story here that's incredible too is how police massage things so that it works to their benefit. I want to share with you this one right here. Actually, I don't. I don't want to share with you that one. I want to share with you this other one. Give me a moment here. It's not this one in particular, it's this other one under here. I got to pull it up here. You might remember this particular case, right? A former police officer accused of killing 15-year-old's family was pretending to be a teen online. So, what we have here is a mental illness problem that is not being addressed as much and is still viewed as simply a sex offense problem. I pointed this particular story out a while ago, a couple of years ago. This comes from 2022. You might remember this particular picture. I had him, Austin Lee Edwards, was a former sheriff's deputy dismissed from that organization here in Virginia. I think it was Washington County. He joins the state patrol and then takes a leave and drives to see a 15-year-old girl that he had been catfishing, pretending to be a 18 or 19-year-old man. He gets there, the family welcomes him. He's watching football with them and out there for a couple of days, and then he takes his service uh, gun and shoots the family, kidnaps the girl and brings her back here. The police go to his former officers, go to his, I can't remember if it's the VSP, Virginia State Patrol, or I think it was Washington County. I'm not certain about that, but the sheriff, somebody went there, the police, and really upset the Riverside Police Office in California because they disturbed the evidence and it did not allow the California police to do a proper investigation. What is really interesting in this case is this second article here that I think I am showing. I may have to share it again because I'm not sure I was successful in doing that. So here it is right here. This one in the prison legal news where the Virginia sheriff who had apparently not decertified this particular officer or not gave warning to the VSP is being sued for not doing his due diligence. And of course, the lawsuit was filed the following winter, November 26th of 2023, about this bizarre story. And this is what's really curious about this, right? Um, Edwards, ends up being confronted here and he ends up fatally shooting himself. The girl's unharmed. I reported that last time, but listen to this. The suit alleges that the sheriff was accused of negligence in Edwards' hiring, noting a 2016 court order restricting Edwards' access to firearms after he cut himself and threatened to kill his father. He had also been incarcerated briefly, I shouldn't say incarcerated, I should say hospitalized in a mental health facility uh, prior to that time. So, or around that same time. So, despite the fact that this man had a mental illness, he was still hired by the sheriff's department in this county, and then subsequently, once dismissed, hired again by the Virginia State Police, and none of them did their due diligence. So, you have to wonder about there. What is going on out there? It's not simply a matter of picking on people who are supposedly online going after children. There's much more going on out there than people realize that are far more dangerous. You'll notice that they keep referring to these people online as uber dangerous, but the real dangerous ones are people like this. Okay, and that the police who's supposed to be protecting us, who tell us trust them all the time, can't even do due diligence in something like this. Okay, and it's not even that. I pointed out this particular case as well, where I'm not confident that I'm sharing these appropriately, so uh, I'm unsharing and then sharing again. So, Greene County school resource officer fired for unprofessional behavior. Now, this was a man I mentioned, Ellie Hounsel. I did a video on him a few days ago. According to the original report, he had been fired for unprofessional conduct with the police department. He went down the road, got a job in Greene County, and then was assigned as a SRO, school resource officer. In other words, a police officer in the school, hopefully to keep gangs and other things under control, be the eyes and ears of the police, be a resource, a trusted individual that children could go to if they get a tip or anything else. Um, but he was relieved of his duty in the earlier article because he was apparently having an inappropriate relationship with a 17-year-old girl. Here, they simply call it in this later article of several days ago, a week ago, they was relieved due to unprofessional behavior that is not otherwise specified. But if you go through this, it's very clear that the unprofessional behavior is somewhat of a sexual nature. Okay. It was concluded during a investigation that there were no criminal acts committed, and it was an isolated incident. Okay, now we've seen many, many times where police officers have been involved in a sexual relationship or highly questionable behavior, whereby if a teacher had done that, they would have been fired on the spot, suspended, summarily executed, that kind of thing. They would have been removed. Okay, executed. I'm joking about macabre humor, but the fact of the matter is they would have been right away. But if it's police officer, we have to take our time. But here's the most amazing thing. How did that happen that it was downgraded to some extent? Well, apparently, we have to go back a little bit into the history, okay? So he had previously been fired for cause with the Charlottesville Police Department. Of course, being fired for cause is very, very easy in a right to work state. They simply have to say that there's a very good reason and demonstrate that reason. And so they do. Okay, it doesn't really matter what it is. Your due process is you get to complain about it, and that's exactly what due process is in Virginia as well as many other states. So again, I'm trying to be fair to Mr. Hounsel here, right? But the chief of police could not go into details as to why he was fired. Well, they don't have a problem with going into lots of details about other people who they kept in these stings. But it is a personnel matter, so I understand that. But he said he was later surprised that he got fired from the Greene County Sheriff's Department. I don't know why he was so surprised, or he feigned surprise, right? He was not aware that they had hired him. Maybe that's what he was really surprised by. By state code, Greene County would have had to contact child CPD, okay, prior to hiring counsel since he'd been fired with cause, okay, the Charlottesville Police Department. Although Coca said those matters are handled by others within the department. So apparently there was a breakdown between the departments. Probably they were so desperate to hire police officers, as we heard before, that they didn't do any kind of background check. He says he didn't know. He's head of the department. He didn't know. By state code, they had to do a background check, but of course, they didn't do it, okay, or some kind of background check. While he was let go, Hansel was not decertified as Virginia code would not have applied to this particular termination. Now, here's what's interesting. Any law enforcement officer convicted of felony or class one misdemeanor involving moral turpitude, sex offenses, a domestic assault or failure to comply, okay, is required to be decertified. Well, one of the ways they get around that, as they did with Caitlin Grimley's case here, the teacher who had sex with two 13 or 14-year-old boys in her class but never paid a price for it, is that they simply downgrade it to a lower level offense that doesn't come with, in this case, decertification, in her case, loss of privileges, loss of her license, requirement to be on a sex offender registry, and to be incarcerated. It's a neat little trick that they do so that they don't have to actually take any action. According to court documents, Hansel was charged with a misdemeanor on a separate occasion while with the Charlottesville Police Department for unauthorized use of an electronic tracking device in April 2022. So compare this to the sting cases I just did in Indiana, where all of these people had no prior offenses. And you have to wonder if the police hadn't been there, if there would have been an offense versus this guy who was employed again and again, though he was charged with separate misdemeanor offenses along the way and still nevertheless hired. He was in a position of moral turpitude or certainly poor judgment, certainly dishonest behavior, but he was hired again and again and again. And don't we see this every single time when we have police officers? I shouldn't say every single time, but the majority of the time we see it over and over again. So why don't you police your own house? And why don't we get to the bottom of what's going on with these things so that we know that innocent people who have no prior criminal background checks or backgrounds, excuse me, no charges against them at all, who could very well be innocent. Why don't we look into what the police are actually doing here as a matter of fairness, right? We want to be fair. We want to be, honest. We want to have integrity. Why don't we look at both sides of the equation? We too quickly believe police. According to, as a final word here, according to Forward Justice Virginia, there is some movement in the General Assembly to bring back the issue of license plate readers and allow police to surveil us and keep this data hidden from us for as long as they want. We previously tamped that back thanks to a bill introduced by then Minority Leader Charnel Herring, excuse me, who was able to shepherd this through. And police, I think, have a maximum of 30 days that they can keep license plate reader information. Folks, we live in a democracy with a constitution. We are supposed to be monitoring the police and making sure they're out for all of our interests, not only protecting children, but protecting constitutional rights. But because of this hysteria involving protecting children, we very often don't. As these articles clearly demonstrate, break down where children are actually at risk because police don't do their due diligence. But for some reason, the public is more interested in going after the average and ordinary person and giving the police very often a pass.